welcome to Ikate's Crossing. Thank you for joining me. Now, don't forget to check out Ko-Fi for the for exclusive posts. Okay, so let's begin this journey of as we continue with the Secret of Shambhala. Okay, so just grab my glasses so we can see what's going on. Okay, so we are up to the energy of evil, which is chapter 9. Okay, and we're up to part 2. So let's begin by looking at the Siddhartha Tarot and the Buddhism Oracle cards. Let's have a look and see what message do the cards have for us in regards to this chapter. So where are we in this process? Oh, okay, so the first card that pops out is the Ace of Swords. So it's about getting a sense of clarity, a sense of removing all the debris and getting a sense of clarity for new beginnings, new thoughts, new perceptions, new ideas, new plans. As we're looking for opportunities, King of Pentacles to me is about new opportunities arising. Maybe we're sort of taking action to look for, to think about what opportunities that may arise. And so with the clarity is going to be super important there, having that sense of clarity. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean financial. Could be to do with your well-being, your security in some way. And so I feel like it's very important that we look at things from all perspectives. We look at all the different angles. We look at we look out, I want to say outside the box, so to speak. We want to look outside the box in this situation. You know, it might be something as we're looking for opportunities that arise. We're thinking about what's going on in a practical approach to getting a sense of clarity and looking at things from a different perspective. So we've got to trust the messages, have that enthusiasm, that drive, that motivation to achieve what's important to our passions. Have a little faith. That's all I got there from the Hierophant was have a little faith. I think that's really important about having faith, having belief, looking at your own spirituality, look at what you're learning from this situation. As you leave behind the old and move into new unknown paths, I do feel like you're leaving behind the chaos and you're starting to sort of move into a new area of emotional needs, which is kind of important here. So let's have a look here. So when I look at these cards, I get the sense of getting a sense of clarity as you really look at the opportunities that arise for you. It's kind of important to be able to have that sense of looking at things from a different perspective, being able to have a little faith in yourself as you use your motivation and your drive to move forward on your journey, to walk into the unknown. So the card we have here is, when you see faults in others, this is a golden opportunity to invest whether the judgment standards you hold in your mind are valid. To me, this, when I think about faults, I think about, and I read this, to me, I think it's about, as you see faults in others, I think it's really important that you look at the faults within yourself. You look at where you are in your life, and, you know, and why do you see faults in others? You know, it's about being, you know, are you being too judgy in the situation? Are you being too critical about others when you need to look at yourself? And I think there should be a sense of, says remorse here should not become self-punishment or depression. Rather celebrate that you will no longer repeat the non-virtuous action that caused you to feel remorse. So I think that is when you find fault with others, and maybe you have this understanding that maybe the fault lies within you, you know, the errors, the judge, you know, you need to judge yourself in some situations. And so what is your motivation? Most powerful motivation is generated by cultivating great passion. Cultivate great passion by always setting the pure intention of benefiting others in what you do. So that can be really important here, process as well. So as you have the sense of, kind of interesting, I've got all yellow cards in a random way. Okay, so we look at here, it feels like the sense of faults, a sense of blaming others. I think it's really important to look at yourself, at what you can do. Look at the way that you can have compassion for others and regret, maybe not regrets, but maybe have a sense of, okay, look at the things that I can change within myself, and allow ourselves to be motivated to make the changes within our own selves so that we can benefit others. Like if we take care of ourselves, makes it easier to take care of others in many ways. So kind of an interesting message there for sure. So let's put those cards to one side here so that you can have a look as I read this continuing of this chapter. Chapter 9, Part 2. The energy of evil. Okay. For 2 hours, we made our way across the valley floor, crossing the frozen river and working our way up the gradual slope to the base of the steep mountains. The snow was beginning to fall harder. Suddenly, Tashi stopped. Something moved up ahead, he said. I strained to see. What was it? It looked like a person. Come on. We proceeded up the slope of the mountain. Its peak looked to be about 2,000 feet above us. There has to be a path somewhere, Tashi said. We can't go over the top. Ahead of us, we heard the sound of sliding snow and rocks. Tashi and I glanced at each other and moved slowly around a series of large outcroppings. As we made our way past the last one, we could see a man shaking himself out of the snow. He looked exhausted. A bloody bandage was wrapped around one of his knees. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Will. It's okay, I said to Tashi. I know this man. I stood up and crawled over the rocks. Will heard us and dived to the side, ready in spite of his leg to run down a narrow draw away from us. It's me, I called to him. Will stood up tall for a moment, then collapsed again in the snow. He was dressed in a thick white parka and insulated pants. It's about time, he said, smiling. I was expecting you earlier. Tashi rushed over and looked at Will's leg. I introduced them as quickly as I could. I explained to Will everything that had happened to me, meeting Yin, fleeing the Chinese, learning the extensions, getting through the gateway, and finally reaching the rings of Shambhala. I didn't know how to find you, I added, pointing down to the valley. Everything's been ruined. It's the effect of the Chinese. I know, Will said. I've already run into them myself. Will went on to tell us about the experiences. Like me, he had extended his prayer field the best he could and been allowed into Shambhala. He'd been in another part of the rings, where he was educated further in the legends by another family. The temples are very difficult to reach, Will said, especially now with the Chinese soldiers coming. We must make sure we are not engaging in negative prayer. I don't seem to be doing so well in that area, I replied. He looked at me sharply concerned. But that's why you were with Yin. Didn't he show you what can happen? I think I understand how to avoid the general fear images. It's my anger against the Chinese soldiers that keeps slipping me up. Will looked even more alarmed and was about to say something when we heard the sounds of helicopters closing in the distance. We began our climb up the mountain, weaving our way through the rocks and deep snowbanks. Everything seemed to be fragile and unstable. We climbed for another 20 minutes without talking. The wind was increasing now, and the snow stung against our face. Will stopped and dropped to one knee. Listen, he said. What's that? It's the helicopter again, I said, fighting my irritation. As we listened, the helicopter sliced through the overhanging clouds and began to fly straight towards us. Limping slightly, Will made his way further up the icy slope. But I paused for an instant, hearing something else above the noise of the helicopter. It sounded like a freight train. Look out, Will screamed ahead of me. It's an avalanche. I tried to run out of the way, but it was too late. The full force of this rolling snow hit me in the face and knocked me backward down the slope. I was tumbling and sliding, sometimes covered completely by the weight of the thundering avalanche, sometimes riding on the surface of the moving mass. After what seemed like forever, I felt myself come to a stop. I was packed in, unable to move, my body in a contorted position under the snow. I tried to suck in a breath, but there was no air. I knew I was about to die. but someone grabbed my outstretched right arm and began to dig me out. I could feel others digging around me, and finally my head was free. I gasped for air, wiping the snow from my eyes, expecting to see Will. Instead, I saw a dozen Chinese soldiers, one of them still holding my arm. In the background, walking toward me, was Colonel Chang. Without talking, he signaled several of the other soldiers to take me to the hovering helicopter. A rope ladder was dropped, and some of the soldiers swiftly climbed aboard, then threw down the harness which was placed around me. The colonel gave the order, and I was hauled aboard as he and the remaining soldiers climbed in. In minutes, we were flying away. Okay, that's it from me for today. Don't forget to check the links down below. Check the links on my channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. Don't forget, being part of the Ko-Fi family will enable you a preview of this before it is released out into the public. Okay, so that's it from me. Take care and blessed be.